Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your natal Juno in the sign of Sagittarius. Sagittarius rules the ninth house in astrology, and Sag is ruled by Jupiter. So what this connects to are issues involving expansion. There are all kinds of expansion. For instance, Sagittarius and Jupiter are connected to higher education, as well as your philosophical construct or your, belief system. These fall under the category of, the bigger picture in life, what it is that we believe we're here for instance, the meaning of life. And the ninth house is also the house of geographical expansion in the form of long distance travel. So expansion all the way around. Juno is an asteroid that is connected to what kind of person is ideal for us when it comes to long-term relationships. Obviously, when we're dealing with other people romantically, there are all sorts of connections that a person can make. A person can have a fling, which is not serious and may be short term. A person can have an affair, which may be, a situation where they are dealing with someone who is already involved with somebody else, or maybe they are involved with somebody else and they are stepping outside of their primary relationship. In those types of relationships, even if they think that they have fallen in love with another person, it's complicated because they are involved with somebody else. So, in other words, it limits their ability to connect in that sort of way with someone else. It's just not possible to do so on those terms. And another thing that can happen as well is that a person can want a friends with benefits situation. That's kind of like a recurring relationship where they're not getting involved seriously. I personally believe that women who get involved in these situations a lot of times miscalculate how much emotionally they will get connected to that situation. So some of these types of more temporary situations are fraught with peril because the person may fool themselves that they are going to be able to take it or leave it, and that they can just handle a casual relationship like that. But they may find out the hard way that it didn't turn out the way that they thought. A long-term relationship is something that I think most people are looking for, whether they know it or not. A committed relationship. And yet, depending on your sun sign, you may be ambivalent about this. In other words, you may be torn whether you really want this because you connect a committed relationship with being, with losing your freedom or those kinds of things. If, feeling stifled, feeling like you can't be free, not just like to be able to do whatever you want, but to express yourself the way that you want. You may feel like you have to conform to somebody else's wishes sometimes. So when we look at other influences in the chart that could be impacting the person's, romantic life, one of them could be Venus, and this could be where things clash, because Venus, and Mars could be who you're attracted to, the style of love that you have, or the attitude you have towards love. So, for instance, let's say that you are someone who has Venus and Scorpio. That can make you want love that is all consuming, and there's like this incredible intensity to the connection, or you're looking for somebody who possesses those qualities. But then you have Juno and Sagittarius, and your need for a relationship is one that is much more freedom oriented. So that can severely clash. And really, if a person has found that they tend to have relationships that are just unsatisfying, that they find that there is a lot of incompatibility, maybe at first they thought that they were really attracted to that person. Maybe they really were attracted to that person. But then they find themselves over and over again feeling a sense of frustration. It's probably because the other person is, maybe it has something to do with the Juno versus Venus situation. So you should definitely check out your Venus. And also the moon is important too, because the moon will explain the person's emotional nature. If the person has the moon in Cancer and they have Juno and Sagittarius, they may be the kind of person who is very emotionally clingy, but they're also looking for someone who is very independent. And that can kind of trigger them but I think in a strange way, it could lead to a lot of personal growth, because sometimes people, might pick a partner who helps them to transcend their limitations. Because certainly, if somebody is emotionally clingy and they're always looking to someone else to fill their cup, to kind of like make them feel confident or, loved, desirable, whatever. Actually, what is more likely to happen is that the other person is going to kind of run away. That's more likely, because nobody wants to feel like it's their responsibility to make somebody feel whole. First of all, it isn't anybody's responsibility, and in the second place, they can't do that for anybody else. I think a lot of us have encountered at least one person in our life who is emotionally needy, and how draining that can be to deal with such a person. And we know damn well, if we deal with them enough, that this person has no intention of, trying to meet their own needs. It's really a way to control someone else by coming from that position of being, in a weakened state and needing somebody else. This is what we would call, in the extreme, a covert narcissist, because they dominate other people's lives with their emotional demands, and they tend to be very draining. So you're the kind of person that you're looking for someone who's very independent, who's very blunt, in speech. I mean, when I say blunt, I don't mean like rude or anything, but somebody who tells it like it is. This is the kind of relationship that you're looking for. You're looking for a relationship that has intellectual stimulation. Sagittarius, as I stated, is associated with higher learning. And so a lot of people don't grasp this, but it's very important. Even though Sag and the ninth house are connected to universities, for instance, it doesn't mean that that is higher learning for every single person, because some people might be high school dropouts and they're very well read, maybe more well read than a college graduate who just went through the motions to get that piece of paper, and somebody else is very motivated. They love learning new things, and their minds are very sharp, and they just have a strong intellect. And you need this. You may not realize this when you're out there dealing with somebody. What if your Venus is in Libra and you're attracted to bright, shiny objects? Beauty is so central to your life. Well, that can be a rude awakening, because you may find yourself with someone that you don't have intellectual compatibility with. And it's not to say that somebody who's beautiful or attractive can't also possess a fine mind, not at all. But if a person is just so driven to focus on the outer, then it puts them at greater risk for winding up with that kind of individual. And then it's not going to be the stuff of long-term relationships. Another thing that may be featured with this relationship is that you may be attracted to somebody from a different culture, because that connection with Sag can be like foreign. And yes, it could be a foreigner, but even if the person is born in the same country as you, they may have like an ethnic, differences to yours or to the nationality that you belong to. So they still seem kind of like a foreigner in a sense. And one thing that a site that I was looking at to kind of get some of my talking points, I wasn't going to acknowledge them because I really haven't been looking too much about this, it's called dreamastromeanings.com. But they mentioned something about a partner who is from another country or another, culture. And they were talking about the downside of this placement is that, because even though this can speak on the things that you're attracted to, it can also be that you are someone who there may be some conflict between your belief system and theirs. So that might be a feature of the relationship as well that has to be ironed out. And what I was thinking is, if you are attracted to somebody from a different country, for instance, the chance of them having a different religion is great, and the chance of them having different viewpoints on things is great as well. Yes, we're all on the same page at the ultimate level, but there are so many different things, and these can be cultural conditioning that occurs for every culture on Earth, and some of them can really clash. Again, talking about male-female relationships, there can be some expectations, both for men and women, in certain cultures that other cultures simply don't have. And that's why there might be a lot of adjustment that could happen, or you may find that a relationship that you were hoping was going to be a long-lasting one doesn't work out because the differences are just too great and the adjustment would have been too great. This can be an adventurous, you might want somebody who's adventurous, not somebody who's a couch potato. And you might want somebody that you can travel with. But like I said, even on the intellectual level, you can do a lot of exploration through the mind. It doesn't even have to be physically that you're doing these things, but somebody who's willing to deal with it. This could be rather non-traditional, so that to me means that it could be not getting legally married. And again, different cultures, some cultures are very, might be very strict about that. And, or just even if you're with somebody who shares the same culture as you still may have differences of opinion on that. And even within yourself, if you have Venus in Taurus or Capricorn, especially like something like Capricorn, and then you have Juno and Sag, this is wildly different. And it can feel to you like you don't understand why those relationships where you're trying to be so conventional, you're trying to be so traditional, why they always end up, flaming out. And that could be why, because you're trying to force yourself to be something that you're not. Now, it's not to say that you should ignore the Venus part of yourself or Mars or whatever it is that is more traditional, if this is what is going on, but you have to acknowledge that you have different influences that are competing with one another. And that will be the best way that I can see to begin the process of sorting out all of this stuff, because sometimes it does get very different, challenging through the differences. And it's hard to find that common ground, but you can do it. Even within a desire, let's say your sun is in Capricorn and you have Venus in Capricorn and you have Juno in Sagittarius. It's not like an impossible task. You may be attracted to someone who's an artist, but they also are very successful, and they do have, and they have, like, they're very grounded. So they're not like scattered. They're not, and so you get the best of both worlds. And maybe you decide to live together and not get married, but you're not like, maybe that person isn't shutting the door on marriage. And so that's good enough for you. They even mentioned on that website that I referenced that the people could live in different residences, that they don't even have to live together. And I would think there would be more Juno and Aquarius, because that's really, very nonconformist. But, I could see it with Sag too, because Sag really does value freedom above almost everything else. So I think that it's probably the case with this. But look to see what other placements you have and how they are contradicting, clashing with one another, because then you'll get a better, kind of understanding of what you need to do to get your needs met. So, for instance, like I said, somebody who is attracted to a relationship that has freedom but is a Capricorn, how can they feel comfortable with that? Well, by having a partner who is still grounded, even though they're unconventional. Just because you're unconventional doesn't mean you're just completely chaotic and you have no structure to your life. And so that is something that will make a Capricorn person feel more comfortable, or a Cancer person feel safe, a Cancer sun sign. If they're with someone who wants a lot of freedom and that triggers within that person that they are going to be left behind or betrayed or something like that, abandoned, or that person may not be able to be a good provider, or whatever it is that they're looking for the long term, if they want to start a family or something like that. Maybe they need someone who is unconventional and yet grounded too. And so, anyway, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.